17-year-old Carter was working part-time at his local grocery store when he noticed an elderly, disabled man struggling with his bags. Without a second thought, Carter rushed to his aid, ignoring his position for a few crucial minutes. The store manager prioritized protocol over compassion and decided that Carter's act of kindness was grounds for immediate dismissal. But the next day, an unexpected visitor at Carter's door turned his life upside down. "Are you Carter?" a strange man asked as Carter opened the door. Yeah?" he answered, brows furrowed. "Come with me."
The man stepped aside to show a fully blacked-out car waiting in front of the house. Carter hesitated because who wouldn't in such a strange situation, but it felt like he had no other choice but to oblige. He had no idea where they were going, and with every second that passed, he felt more nervous. He looked at the doors and saw they were locked, all of them. What were these men up to with him? The driver said, "We arrived," and he stepped out of the car. The doors stayed locked so that Carter couldn't get out on his own terms, just as his heart rate picked up because the man was taking so long to open the car door. But who were these men? What did they want with Carter, and where did they take him? Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our upcoming stories. Working at the local grocery store was Carter's first step into the real world. He wanted to earn his own money to buy his own things without always having to ask his parents for permission. It was something he had longed for a very long time, and he took his job very seriously. Carter also loved helping people, which made his job more enjoyable. Out of all his coworkers, Carter had the brightest smile, and he never faked one. So it came as no surprise that he jumped in to help a disabled man with his grocery bags. The man hadn't even asked for it, but Carter saw him struggle and couldn't not help the man. Sadly, the store manager thought otherwise. He prioritized helping actual customers above helping people who had already paid. As soon as he spotted Carter out in the parking lot, he wasted no time walking up to him and asking him what on earth he thought he was doing. "This is not what I pay you for." He paused and told the store manager this would only take a second. Carter was a little embarrassed as the disabled man could clearly feel the store manager's arrogance. After that, Carter headed back inside, already mentally preparing himself for the scolding he would get from the manager, but to his surprise, the manager was nowhere to be seen. Just as Carter wanted to resume his job, his name was called over the intercom, asking him to come to the manager's office. Carter headed up there. The store manager's face looked serious as he greeted Carter into the office. He said, "Sit." Carter sighed as he sat down. "Look, I'm sorry, but the man needed help. He had only one leg." But the manager's mind was made up. "I'm going to have to let you go." Carter's stomach dropped. Was he serious? He couldn't believe he was being fired over a good deed he had done. As Carter walked out of the store, leaving his apron at his usual checkout desk, he said goodbye to his work bestie, Linda. Linda said as she gave Carter a hug. What a prick. They promised to stay in touch, but it didn't make Carter feel better. He had lost his job over something so stupid. He almost didn't tell his mother, who had been so proud of him for getting the job in the first place. She surprised at seeing her son's face, but Carter couldn't hide his disappointment. He sighed as he gave his mother a hug and told her that he left his job. Carter's mother was furious after hearing why Carter had been let go. His mother suggested that she should call the grocery store's owner, but Carter told her to let it go and went to his room. He fell onto his bed, thinking about other jobs he could get. The rest of the day dragged on for Carter. He tried to distract himself by watching TV, but the scenes just blurred together. Instead, he ended up pacing his room, unable to shake off the day's events. Every now and then, he glanced at his phone, half expecting some miracle message that would reverse everything. But nothing came. At dinner, Carter's father broke the news that he had heard about the firing. He said to Carter, "I've spoken with a buddy of mine. He might have a job for you at his garage, if you're interested," but wasn't sure he was ready to dive into something new just yet. The peace of the night was shattered the next morning by the insistent ringing of the doorbell. Carter jolted awake, his heart pounding. He wasn't expecting anyone. Who could it be at this hour? Throwing on a shirt, he rushed to the door, the sound echoing ominously through the empty house. His mind raced with possibilities as he descended the stairs two at a time. He grabbed the doorknob, heart still racing from sleep in the sudden rush, and pulled the door open, squinting against the bright morning light. expecting maybe a neighbor or a delivery at most. Instead, he found the street empty, except for a large black car idling by the curb, and a man twice Carter's size, clad in a dark suit and sunglasses. He asked in a low, "Are you Carter?" Carter nodded, unable to hide his surprise. The man's presence was intimidating, and his serious demeanor didn't help. "Good. You need to come with me," he continued, already turning back towards the waiting car. Without waiting for a reply, the man strode to the car and opened the passenger door, signaling for Carter to follow. Carter's mind raced as he trailed behind, his steps slow, weighed down by uncertainty. The man seemed to expect obedience without question, and the sleek car looked out of place in the quiet suburb, adding to the surreal start to his day. Carter hesitated at the car door, his heart thumping loudly in his chest. He knew nothing about this man or where he was being taken. With a deep breath, Carter climbed into the back seat, the door closing with a heavy, ominous thud behind him. The doors locked automatically and the windows tinted further, obscuring the morning light. "Where are we going?" Carter tried to ask, but the man in front just adjusted his mirror, ignoring the question. He was trapped, heading into unknown territory, his anxiety mounting with each passing mile. He asked again, trying to sound more assertive, but they continued to ignore him, their eyes fixed on the road ahead. Frustration built up in Carter as he realized that pressing them was pointless. The outside world was a blur of shadows and vague shapes, leaving him feeling even more isolated and trapped. Suddenly, the car's speaker crackled to life, and a voice boomed inside, breaking the heavy silence. "Have you succeeded?" "Yes, he's with us now." Carter listened, his anxiety spiking with each word exchanged over the speaker. The men looking back at Carter through the rearview mirror with a stern expression. Carter shifted in his seat, uneasy with their confirmed intentions and the brief, ominous conversation. He had more questions now, but it was clear they wouldn't be answered anytime soon. Carter sat rigidly, trying to appear calm. He didn't know what to make of the situation, torn between the contrasting elements of danger and the deceptive comfort of his surroundings. The scenery shifted from the blur of a highway to the rugged outlines of a less traveled road. Carter ventured again, hoping for a real answer this time. The man in the passenger seat glanced at him through the rearview mirror before responding. "We'll be there soon." His tone was dismissive. Carter leaned back, his attempts at communication shut down once more. He had no choice but to wait and see where this mysterious journey would end. The car's sudden deceleration threw Carter slightly forward. The vehicle came to a halt, but the driver remained silent and stationary, hands still on the wheel. The man who had fetched Carter from his home, shutting the door behind him with a definitive thud. Carter watched him walk away, feeling a mix of relief and heightened anxiety at being left alone with the silent driver. Carter asked, "What's going on?" His voice tinged with desperation. The driver remained focused on something outside the window, unresponsive. His door swung open. The man who had led him from his house stood there, expression unreadable behind those dark sunglasses. He instructed firmly, "Get out," stepping back to give Carter room to exit the car. Carter stepped out into the chilly air of a sprawling harbor. Ships bobbed in the water, seagulls cried overhead, and the smell of salt and fish was pervasive. The man motioned for him to follow, leading Carter towards one of the docks, each step echoing on the wooden planks. The driver, speaking into a device, he said, "E, they're not here yet." His mind raced with questions about the secrecy as he watched the driver's unyielding profile, still aimed towards the incoming path. E noticed Carter's curious glances around the expansive harbor. "We're at Garland Harbor," he stated flatly, as if it was no big deal to share. Carter found it odd that E would divulge their location so openly, adding another layer of mystery. Why would he reveal where they were unless it was meant to make Carter feel even more isolated? It became evident that they were waiting for someone. E remained tight-lipped, his face giving away nothing. Carter's apprehension grew as he followed E's gaze to the horizon, wondering who was important enough to warrant such a secretive meeting. A sleek boat cut through the water, heading straight for them. It docked with precision, and E walked up to greet the captain, who welcomed him with a serious nod. Carter watched from a distance, his nervousness mounting as he took in the exchange. E's authority seemed unquestioned as he spoke briefly with the captain. E indicated towards Carter, making a slight gesture with his head. "Come here." Was he meant to board the boat? He tensed, preparing himself for what might come next. I'll get boat sick." Carter blurted out, a desperate attempt to avoid boarding. His claim was a lie. He'd never been seasick in his life. He scrambled for another excuse. My parents, they're strict. They'll start looking for me if I'm not back by 5. It was clear that Carter's familial obligations meant nothing here. This was a scenario that wouldn't be swayed by parental concerns or curfews. E commanded sharply, "Get on!" his patience thinning. With a heavy heart and nowhere else to turn, Carter stepped onto the boat, his legs trembling slightly as he moved. Once on board, E joined Carter, sitting stiffly beside him. Carter noticed E gripping the railing tightly. It seemed E was no fan of the sea either, his discomfort almost matching Carter's. E finally spoke, his tone softer. "Never liked sailing." The boat cut through the water, aiming for a small island visible in the distance. Fred's Island! The island, a mere 20 minutes from the harbor, seemed isolated, a solitary haven amid the sea. Carter asked, "Who's Fred?" seizing the moment as E seemed less guarded. He hoped the question would unravel some of the mystery surrounding their destination. E glanced at him, a flicker of consideration crossing his face before he responded, "You'll meet him soon," and walked away to speak with the captain, closing the cabin door behind him with a decisive click. For the first time in hours, Carter found himself alone on the deck. His heart raced as he looked around, desperate for anything that could serve as a weapon or provide an escape route. The vast ocean surrounded them, leaving few options. He moved carefully, his eyes scanning every corner of the boat, knowing that finding something could be the difference between capture and freedom. His search was frantic but thorough, and finally, under a pile of ropes, he found a metal rod. Carter grasped it, feeling its weight in his hand, a grim reassurance. He slid it behind his back, concealing it with his jacket. Although violence was the last thing on his mind, the uncertainty of his situation left him no choice but to prepare for the worst. The boat thudded against the dock of the island, and Carter wasted no time. He leapt from the boat, metal rod raised defensively in front of him. He shouted, scanning the quiet expanse of the island that held only a single house and a large shed, "I need answers now." Carter's stance was aggressive, his grip on the rod tight. "I'm not playing around anymore." E stood on the boat, hands raised slightly in a calming gesture, but his face remained unreadable. E slowly stepped off the boat, approaching Carter with a calmness that belied the tension of the moment. E's muscles were tense, ready for any move Carter might make, trying to defuse the situation. The sudden question came from behind Carter. "What's going on here?" He surprised and shaken. Carter whirled around, losing his grip on the metal rod as it clattered to the ground, his eyes wide with surprise. There, standing with the aid of a crutch, was the one-legged man he'd helped just days before. Carter's mind buzzed with questions, each one pressing for answers about how their paths had crossed again under such bizarre circumstances. The man's steady gaze met his with a hint of a knowing smile. He introduced himself, extending a hand. "Fred Hillman!" The pieces clicked together in Carter's mind as he shook Fred's hand, still in disbelief. Fred Hillman, the reclusive owner of Hillman's grocery store, stood before him on this secluded island. "Come in, let's talk over a drink." As they walked, Fred's demeanor was calm and friendly, a stark contrast to the mysterious circumstances that had led Carter here. Inside, Fred poured 2 glasses of lemonade, setting the stage for a conversation. As they sat across from each other, Fred's expression turned serious. "I heard about your firing. In fact, I fired the manager last night. And now I need someone to fill his shoes. I think you could be the right person for the job," Fred stated plainly, pushing a contract across the table towards Carter. "Yes, I'll take it," he finally managed to say, his voice steady despite the fluttering in his chest. They both took a sip, celebrating Carter's new role. To new beginnings, the ride back was markedly different from the mysterious trip to the island. This time, Carter sat next to E, feeling a new sense of security and purpose. As the car pulled up to his house, Carter saw his father standing in the driveway, his expression a mix of confusion and concern. "Carter?" his father asked as Carter stepped out of the car. "What's all this?" "It's a long story, Dad," Carter replied, a grin spreading across his face as he prepared to share the incredible news. His father exclaimed, wrapping Carter in a hearty embrace. "You deserved this, Carter." He recounted the day's wild ride, from the unexpected dismissal to the astonishing job offer. Carter's new role as store manager became a stable platform as he pursued a business degree in college. The grocery store thrived under his careful watch, and his dreams of owning a business someday seemed release. Years of dedication and hard work led to a moment Carter had never anticipated. Over coffee one morning, Fred, now approaching retirement, posed a life-changing question. "How would you feel about taking over the store?" His tone was casual, but the offer was anything but. It was the culmination of years of trust and success, a testament to Carter's loyalty and acumen. Carter was overwhelmed by the offer. It seemed incredible that a single act of kindness toward a struggling customer could have led to this moment. He accepted without hesitation, aware that this opportunity was a rarity in anyone's career. The path from a part-time clerk to potential owner had been unexpected but profoundly rewarding. This decision would set the course for the rest of his professional life. His career was secure, the future of Hillman's grocery store in his capable hands. This stability allowed him to focus on growth and innovation rather than job security, ensuring the store's success continued under his leadership and beyond. The grocery store became a family emblem, passed down through the generations. Carter's son, and later his grandchildren, took the helm, each adding their own touch. The store remained a local staple, a place where customers were treated like family, and every employee knew they were part of something special, continuing Carter's legacy of kindness and leadership.